It's the top 5 sports talkers of the day. Now, it's time for Dan Barrero's Top 5 at 5. Brought to you by Gutter Helmet of Minnesota. Never clean your gutters again. Learn more at gutterhelmetmn.com.
Well, I had to put together a not particularly enticing tease because it was fairly clear that, as often happens,
yes,
you get held up at the vestibule by the guests,
yes, leading
into the top 5 at 5. So I didn't do a very good job of selling what you might or might have had, not have had, or had ready for us today. It was incredibly, embarrassingly vague. It was, I'm sure there'll be some football, and I'm sure there'll be some baseball, and I don't even remember what else I said. I don't. Okay. It's a blur.
You're kind of close, and we got to go quick because we got to stay on schedule because we've got bonus bucks to give away in a couple of minutes. We've got Ben Goessling at the bottom of the hour. We played yesterday. I'll start with this. We played yesterday the Corey Provis call of the ultimate Grand Slam, which I agree with Lavelle. I'd never heard of until yesterday.
We don't need it.
And I don't feel like we need it. I'm in agreement with all of you. How did it sound on the Kansas City television side, the losers side? Let's listen.
In the air, deep right center field, unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable.
Man, they're just going to let it breathe?
Sometimes you just don't know what to say. You're so...
Yeah.
You got a bucket in your gut at a time like that. When I heard it, I was hoping for something a little bit more like, this is disgusting.
Yeah.
But it didn't quite go that far. Maybe the silence said disgusting.
I think that's probably it. After being walked off on Friday with a 2-out hit, Royce Lewis, and then walked off yesterday, maybe he had seen enough.
Yeah, it's possible.
Well, do you know what it inspired everybody? Cody Clemens. They took about 8 hours. And then last night, this story posted at 1:39 Eastern, 12:39 midnight, our time. Mm-hmm. Twins are buying. Well, they're browsing. And they made a purchase. And they're paying all $3 million plus of A.J. Minter's salary. He's a left-handed pitcher from the Mets. We traded 2 prospects, none of them
top 25, I don't
highly
think,
touted, and I think one of them's hurt as well. But he is, as Lavelle, I think, just said, a legitimate left-handed relief pitcher, which the Twins don't really have. He goes right to that role for us, maybe even starting tonight in Seattle. Your thoughts?
Well, as we said earlier, it sounds like a better cut of relief pitching performer than the first move we made, the first acquisition, and it's not one that you have to apologize for. Would it be considered like, oh my God, season changing? Probably not, but there's still time to do that. And but I think it's an improvement. I think it is a step in the right direction. I'm not ready to, like I said, forgive and forget everything that's taken place up until now. But all you're looking for at this point are indications, and it'll take probably a bigger move, I think, for people to be actually excited about this whole process. And whether that's coming or not, Monday afternoon, right? early Monday evening is the deadline.
I think right about now.
We'll indeed have to see. And the other question is, are they truly entertaining the possibility of listening to offer for some of their good players under the guise of, well, sometimes it's too good an offer for us to refuse? What's the line there? What's acceptable? What isn't? That's what we're all looking for here. And I'll grant you, I certainly didn't think we would even be in this position. It's a 500 team, which in this league especially is enough to be a factor, at least, to lie to yourself that you're in the race. And I do think obligates them to try to finally show a little bit of aggressiveness. A lot of aggressiveness, I think, is what people would really like to look for here, to where you go, whoa, I really didn't expect that.
55-55 is the record tonight. They are in Seattle, 9:10 first pitch. Zebby Matthews on the mound. Justin Jefferson spoke today after a truncated training camp practice because of the rain. They moved it inside. Everything was kind of done at a walk-through speed, is what the reporters are saying. Ben Goessling about 15 minutes from now. But here's JJ. The question, Do you feel like this competition at quarterback is going to bring out the best in one or both of them?
I hope so. That's the key thing. Just obviously, having somebody pretty much breathing down your neck and being pretty much a replacement or, a person that's taking that starting role, it's always going to be pressure. It's always going to be that competition feeling. So I hope that, betters them. I hope it definitely betters JJ because he's definitely a younger guy, younger quarterback into this league. And to be, coming off of last year with a difficult year and improving every single day as he is, that's definitely great to see him come out here with that mentality every single day.
Do you expect to or want to have any input to Kevin as this competition goes along?
I feel like he's going to ask me along the way, but I feel like, I don't know. It's difficult question. It's just all about who comes out here and makes the plays, who's going to be that vocal leader, that person that we can depend on throughout the difficult parts of the season, and who's consistent. So whoever that guy is, that's who we're rocking with, and obviously we're going to have the other guy, throughout the whole entire season, if anything else goes bad. So it's just all on, getting the work in, creating a connection with both players, and just building on that.
I thought it was a very good, honest, yet still safe enough answer. I'm glad you played it because I'd had not the soundbite in front of me, the quote in front of me. And the part I didn't have was that first part you included, which also I think was kind of insightful and illuminating that, in effect, he's saying, without saying, well, maybe we made it a little too easy for J.J. McCarthy last year. He was anointed. And in effect, he's saying now he's got somebody breathing down his neck. Or it could end up being the other way around. But the point is, he's saying that's how we're going to find out about J.J. McCarthy in particular, right, is how does he handle that kind of competition now? How does he handle that he's no longer the anointed guy? It can go two ways. He can curl up in the fetal position, go belly up, or maybe you extract something out of him. Maybe this is the best way to get it out of him. And so, look, he's not going to give an answer right now about who he's going to pick, but I still thought it was a good question, good series of questions, and a deep, more than the usual sort of word salad answers that you sometimes get out of Winter Park. I thought it was actually a pretty solid. That KOC will want some input from him. I don't think there's any question about that.
Yes.
Be foolish if he didn't, which is different than saying he will make that. They're going to let Justin Jefferson make the call. But I thought that was a very good answer, and it does speak to, I think, one of the mistakes last year is just assuming that he's ready, and he had no competition last year. And to a certain extent, that might have made it a little bit too easy for him, and now he's having to, whether it's a fixed competition or not, he's in a position now where he is playing for playing time, whether it's this year or next year, here or someplace else.
This team or somewhere else.
That's
right.
right.
TheFan&BigDeck.com. I'm going to give you a shot to win bonus bucks with our national cash contest. Final keyword of the week is check. Go to KFAN.com and enter the keyword check.
All right, we got some good texts coming in, and then we will get more from Vikings practice. Ben Goessling is scheduled to join us at the bottom of this hour.
Bumper to Bumper with Dan Barrero.
As I mentioned, Ben Goessling coming up in just a few minutes on the Friday Football Beast, as we like to call it. Had a Lynx nugget via the text line. Let me see if I can find it. I was thinking about going to the Lynx game and mainly Caitlin Clark on Sunday, but the cheapest ticket on Ticketmaster is $125 up at the nosebleeds. It's incredible what Caitlin Clark has done for that league. Not to mention what the Lynx themselves have done. I think it's fair to say it's the perfect storm going on now.
Yes.
You still have absolutely the Clark factor. It is ongoing. In a league where, who wrote this the other day? Just within the last 2 or 3 days, the belief that what's interesting about the WNBA, if you can cut through all of the nonsense, is that the league is growing beyond her. The number, the amount of depth and the number of players who are emerging is such that there's more depth than ever. And when I say depth, I mean star depth.
Sure.
And that's all part of, as we like to say in the business, quote unquote, growing the game. But the interest in her is undeniable, and it looks like she's healthier again. Although, did I see something that she might miss a game tonight? I have to double check her injury status because she's been on a roll.
Yeah.
And I believe the Fever have been on not a Lynx roll, obviously. We won, I think, 9 in a row for Mike Yo, if I'm not mistaken.
She is listed as day-to-day with the back injury. Probable for tonight's game against Portland.
Probable. Okay.
Yep.
And then it's a Sunday noon start, correct?
Which Lavelle's right. The Iowa factor for this particular game is going to be off the charts. There's going to be a lot of black and gold 22s and Fever 22s because it's an easy time to get up here to Minneapolis. And there's a lot of Iowa fans that live here.
Yes.
So they're going to definitely be heard. I remember going rookie year, and it was a lot of black and gold 22s. Or the if you break it, you own it, when she broke the scoring record, that shirt. There'll be a lot of those, too.
Do you remember, I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on this, but we have a minute or two. Do you remember all the controversy and the allegations about the Lincoln reflecting pool?
Well, like
the idea that
there was vandals,
sabotage and vandals and all that kind of stuff.
I kind of followed it. I was kind of bored with it, honestly, but I've certainly caught the headlines.
Because of how it began, it is absolutely worthy of discussion on how it apparently is finishing. It falls under that classification of the hubbub surrounding the original breathlessness of the way the story is reported is very different than how it's fading out. Example, July 2nd. The evidence shows we will prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Hearn willfully destroyed property at the Lincoln reflecting pool. That's the Olympic athlete, I think, Hearn, is what they're talking about.
That's right.
July 31st. Is that today?
It is.
Here's the quote from the same office, same feds, U.S. Attorney's Office. Charges against Hearn dropped. The damage was, quote, the result of flawed installation by the contractor. It was an all-points bulletin, was it not? It was DEFCON 1 on that thing.
It was.
And it was all about the guy, and we were sure it was about the guy, and now it's actually faulty work by the contractor. Better that that's at least acknowledged at all, but it's a long way from where we were.
A little Friday afternoon news dump on Hearn.
It sounds like it might be.
On that one?
To a certain extent. Somebody said that the Royals radio call, is Ryan Lefebvre still doing radio?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's I know he's with the team. I don't know if it's radio or TV.
Well, then it was a lot more, shall we say, it's a lot more fear and loathing than the TV call. A lot less silent, but I've not heard it. So
I can probably find that by the end of the show.
I'd be curious to know if that is indeed the...
Lefebvre was outstanding with PA on Monday.
Yeah, I heard he was very good talking about...
his coach, John Anderson. Yeah, it was really nice.
Isn't the ultimate Grand Slam a breakfast at Denny's?
Oh, lucky. That sounds good. Man.
Grand Slam breakfast.
Yeah.
Is it called the ultimate Grand Slam breakfast or just Grand Slam breakfast?
I bet they have both. I bet they have the Grand Slam, and then I bet there's like some type of upgrade for the ultimate. But I haven't been to Denny's in a long time.
I haven't either. I don't even know. I don't think there are as many as there used to be. I remember the last Denny's I went to, I want to say is out in Bloomington / off of 494. Isn't there a Denny's off 494?
I think there still is. It's connected to that hotel.
Yes.
It was right next to Sensors, right?
Correct.
Isn't that where it was?
Right in that area.
Yeah. I don't know if it's still there or not. I try to avoid 494 that way because of the construction.
That's probably smart. 763 guy how do you like my theory from yesterday about the reason Iran would target Minnesota? Today, the president did indeed blame not Wes Walz, but Tim Walz for the hack. You cannot make this stuff up. Now, the irony here again is it was his own, I think it was one of his own officials who had connected originally the hacking attempt into the water system to Iran. Now, it wasn't confirmed, but that was among the possibilities, but it inevitably was brought back. Because I asked the question, well, why is Iran going after us? And what the texter said yesterday was, well, mark my words, the president will say they want to mess with Minnesota because it's Minnesota and it's run by corrupt officials. So sure enough today,
right on time.
It's now become, like everything else, it's Walz's fault. Not Caitlin Clark's fault, but Walz's fault in this case, which is also rather enlightening, one could say. Forget Kyler, Ride McCarthy, and Boomer Bust, sick of 500 seasons that go nowhere. That's the nightmare. What's described there is the nightmare, right? It's
Kyler leads
Murray,
us to like
Kyler
9
Murray
and 8.
starts, and we go 9-8, and we either just miss the playoffs or we lose our first playoff game. And he ends up with, let's just say, 26 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, and 9 fumbles. And at the end of the day, you're going, where are we now?
You don't know what you have.
You don't know what you have. You're probably not going to, at that point, re-sign him. Maybe you do look at Tampa Bay guy, which
Baker's not happy.
Baker is not happy at all, apparently. Or maybe you go back to JJ. That would be the nightmare, right? A middle ground is what is going to be a mess. You're almost better off being terrible,
right,
or being really good with Kyler, right? One or the other?
Yes, exactly.
Do you like this idea regarding the Nafisa Collier trade scheme, even though there really isn't any? Move fee, bring Paige Beckers home.
Well, they're not.
How about a backcourt? How about a backcourt forever, for the next 10 years, of Paige Beckers and Olivia Miles?
It'd be great.
Let's play.
It'd be great.
I think they could play together.
Well, easily.
You could say well, wait a minute, they both need the ball. I think they could play off each other. You'd have that potentially, could that be the best backcourt in WNBA history? Potentially.
Yeah, probably.
Probably would have to be.
Yeah.
I don't even know that's a possibility. Now other people are saying, look, there's a wink. Player max is going up next year. Nafisa knows that. So she's coming back here and she's going to make a much bigger killing than she would have otherwise. Which I still think is likely, right? But it's just an interesting wrinkle that you just don't expect to see with a team that's enjoyed as good a season as they have.
And don't forget, while her contract has been going on and all of this, ownership changed hands too.
Great point. You're right.
It's not Glenn and Becky anymore that are running the Lynx. Who knows? Maybe Fee loved the lasagna.
By the way, a couple of people think the call you played during Top 5 was Ryan Lefevre.
Was Lefevre? It could have been. I don't know his voice well enough on a call.
It sounded a little different than I remember it, but supposedly they trade off. But the feeling is that was Lefevre on the TV call.
Fan alum, right? Wasn't he an intern
correct.
here for sure, or did he work here?
Absolutely.
I remember listening to him when he was a college baseball player.
Yeah.
Big time.
That's it. That's how old you are.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah.
I remember listening to him, this station, when he was on it. It was great.
How did Ben Goessling evaluate what the comments from Justin Jefferson, I think he was there for them, on the quarterbacks early in camp? We'll get to some other Viking stories and questions from you, the audience, at 64686. Back with Ben next.
You're listening to Barrero on the Fan.
Submitted already to the producer of this program via the Enough Said TV program that the media jackals who cover the Minnesota Vikings, including the one we're about to talk to, are facing a kind of pressure this training camp that I am not sure they have ever felt before. Ben Goessling is with us via the Connecticut Water Systems Hotline. And Ben, as we welcome you back, here's what I mean by that. Already, after a couple of days of practice, I am seeing pushback to several of you on however you have conveyed the quarterback performances between Kyler and JJ in each of your positions on what you've emphasized, what you have ignored, etc. And I'm telling you, you guys are on the line in a different way because everybody's not. It's the different reporters view things through their own lenses, and there's been different reactions. There have been different emphases already. But what's interesting is reading the comments reacting to whatever approach, whatever assessment each of you have had. Have you noticed that? Because I think you're going to get more of that this time around than perhaps you ever have before. You guys are on the clock.
Yes, there has been a theme to it so far. I posted something fairly innocuous yesterday about, here's what happened in practice. Kyler Murray threw a couple picks and nice back shoulder catch from Ty Felton, yes. And Miles Price corrected Carson Wentz throw that was behind him. And I got a few comments right away. Why no mention of JJ? What are you hiding? Why are you trying to steer it toward Kyler? It's like, guys, he had a fairly nondescript day. He was with the second team. It wasn't that newsworthy on that particular day. There's not really a big conspiracy, but that has been a lot of the theme is that particular wing of things has had some thoughts. And that's been a lot of what we've seen so far. I was on Fox 9 all day today and I had somebody respond like, are you aware that JJ McCarthy exists? Like, yep, I am. The story I won an APSE for AP Sports Editor Award National Journalism Contest this year was all about the making of JJ McCarthy. So yes. I am aware that he is a quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings, and we will be covering him plenty through the next several weeks as he competes for the quarterback job. But yesterday wasn't particularly noteworthy, so didn't emphasize it a ton. No grand conspiracy here, sorry to disappoint, but I'm sure we'll have some fun with it regardless.
Were there any conspiracies from today that you want to advance?
Well, today was kind of nondescript because they got rained out of being outside, so they go from 4 fields outside to 1 indoors. It was basically a glorified walkthrough. A lot of vet days for Christian Darrisaw. Justin Jefferson was out there, but not in cleats from what I could tell. So kind of a quasi vet day for him. No major happenings today because they just can't do as much with that many guys on one field. So, they got work in, but it was, probably not at the speed and not at the volume that they would have wanted. We'll get probably a better look at it tomorrow, and then the pads go on Monday. But I don't have anything to advance. There's no Zapruder film coming from me today. I took a couple pictures of guys dropping back and throwing in individual drills and position drills. But don't have a lot to feed the fire on this particular one yet.
I did like, and I think you posted a decent part of it, Gaardsy ran it during the Top 5 at 5, some of Justin Jefferson's commentary or reaction to questions about what he's seen at the position and whether he's going to try to give input the whole bit. And for me, the most compelling part was related to McCarthy, saying basically this is kind of what all of us need is competition, if at all possible, where you got somebody breathing down your neck, I think is the term he put it. And clearly he's meaning JJ, because JJ was the incumbent here last year. And that I'm not saying he said, in effect, that, well, we made it too easy for him because he was anointed. But I think there's something to what he said. It obviously can go two ways. A guy can curl up and get angry or feel sorry for himself, or he can use that, double down on whatever improvements he thinks he already needs to make, and use it to his advantage. And that's the odd thing for me. I think, and I don't know if you can do two things at once. Can you establish who the guy is, and we all assume it's going to be McCarthy, and perhaps during that process still find out something about J.J. McCarthy? Maybe that's too much to ask for, but that would be the home run, right? To get, presumably Kyler in shape and ready to be the starter, but McCarthy to elevate himself to a place where you say, okay, now he's getting into the spirit of this competition, and regardless of what happens this season, we might have reason not to give up on the young guy either.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot that they're trying to get done with both these guys. There's the trade-off between getting everybody ready for the season, whether that's Kyler Murray, whether that's J.J. McCarthy. Obviously, Kyler Murray is new to the offense and has more catching up to do in that regard. McCarthy, I believe, is only the second quarterback in the Kevin O'Connell era to head into a third training camp with this team, and the other one is Nick Mullins. So it's a short list, and he's got a little more familiarity with it than Kyler Murray. So that does make things tricky when you're trying to get Murray ready, and then you also are trying to play out this competition between both of them. So there is that challenge to it. But, yeah, I think to your point, this is not necessarily the end for J.J. McCarthy, even if he doesn't win the job, because he's still only 23 years old. He's under contract for a couple more years yet. They would have to make a decision on that fifth-year option, but you could pick that up as a wait-and-see kind of thing, especially when they've still got a relatively cheap nucleus in a lot of places on the roster. So I think that would be possible. Now, if Murray is good enough, then you probably look at signing him long term. But regardless, there are still a number of scenarios where even if he's not the guy this year, J.J. McCarthy can still have a future in Minnesota. So I think if it goes that way, yes, you want him to respond and give his best no matter what the outcome of it is. And I think that's been the hope here, and everything I've heard is that's how he's embraced it and said, yeah, I'm going to go try to win this job and show that I've improved enough to be the guy. I asked him a couple questions earlier this week about kind of where he has felt like he's made progress, and he said, it feels to me like things have slowed down in this offense. I'm not having to sit up here anymore and say, okay, what's the receiver split supposed to be? What's the tight end's assignment here? What's the protection? What's the snap count? All of those little details. It's much more I can go up, say this looks right. I don't need to analyze every detail of it and kind of call up the textbook in my mind. I can just go and play. So, and we will get a better sense of that once we get into padded practices and situations that are maybe a little faster tempo than some of the early stuff we've seen. But for him to say that, I think that's a good sign. Yes. That's an indication of progress and just a little more experience in this offense. We'll see where that goes. But yes, a lot of this is they want to see him rise to the occasion and take this on as a challenge because, yeah, he didn't really have that last year. He was the guy from the jump, and they were planning for that to work. And the fact that we have competition this year is an indication of what happened last year. If he is terrific in 2025 and takes them to the playoffs and shows he's durable and shows he's effective, you're getting him ready to go without a competition. So that is where we are, and I think for him to come out of that with the job, he's certainly going to have to embrace the idea and say, I'm taking on the challenge and showing I can meet it.
In these early stages of training camp, are we seeing Kyler more out of the gun than we are McCarthy, given that was part of certainly his success in Kyler Murray's success in Arizona?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen him in the gun, and I think there's going to be some pistol stuff probably going forward. Mm-hmm. It's been a lot of that to what we've seen to this point, and, you know, they're still kind of working through things, and I think it's probably been a fairly, especially today when they didn't get a lot done in terms of just running a lot of plays. There's still a long way to go with this thing in terms of all of the install and what's going to happen with this offense. But, yeah, I think we're going to see more of that with him. It's certainly been a big part of it. And the thing to watch there is that the quarterback center exchanges have to be sharper than they've been these first couple of days. We've seen a number of moments, both with Blake Brandel and Michael Juergens, where, you know, botched exchanges yesterday, snaps that were high, even if they were caught, a couple of fumbles on those quarterback center exchanges. So that is the thing that if you're going to be in the gun more, you have to have effective exchanges at that position. So that is, I think, as fans are out here, something worth watching because they were not great with it yesterday. And if you're going to play that style of offense, you have to have that be consistent.
Jamal Adams here, we know his story. I mean, once upon a time, an ascending star, right? And Seattle ultimately had to give up a bunch to get him, and it didn't really pay off there. He had injury issues. He's talked about the seriousness of one of those injuries and how big an impact it has had for many years. He now, I think most recently, was more of a linebacker than defensive back or safety. The assumption, obviously, is always that with Flores that it'll be hybrid stuff and you use him in a lot of different ways. Do you think the Vikings view him as a sort of this is a kind of a low-risk acquisition, a guy who might help a little, or do you think they actually project him as being somebody they can turn into a mainstay?
Well, I think at the jump it's low risk because they worked out like 5 linebackers the day that they brought him in. He was in a batch of linebackers that they looked at, and the contract certainly doesn't leave them exposed to much risk. It's a vet minimum deal. There's a veteran minimum salary benefit that basically means a guy that has been in the league this long only counts as much as the guy that's been in the league for 2 years. So it basically helps veterans stay on the roster, helps teams save a little bit of money to bring a veteran in. And then he's also got something where his salary is reduced if he's on injured reserve. So they are not really exposed much at this point. There's not really a long-term commitment beyond training camp at this point. And I think there's hope that he can be an intriguing piece and possibly fit into this defense because of the things you mentioned. He was a safety that came in, I think it was 2 first-round picks, and the first year he was in Seattle, I think he had 9.5 sacks. I mean, he's shown he can get to the quarterback, and some of that is probably how things are schemed. It's, how can he beat offensive linemen if they've adjusted to him, and does he have a way to work off of a primary move? I mean, all of those things are things he'll have to show, especially when he has not been a terribly productive pass rusher, injuries notwithstanding after that big year in Seattle. But the shift to linebacker last year seemed to reinvigorate him a little bit. I think that's where they've had him the first few days. I think that's primarily what they'll do. But they do like to move people around, and those hybrid type players, Josh Metellus has done a lot of this, tend to find a role in this defense. So if he stays, I would imagine you're putting him in a lot of those situations where you can play him kind of in an underneath zone type place or send him as a pass rusher. I think they were intrigued enough by it, especially given Nolan Teasley's history with him, to take a look. But at this point, they're not committed to much in terms of where the contract puts them. So a lot of this will give him a chance to prove that he's worth a spot. And if he's not, they're not really out very much in the process of that.
I'll turn my mic on. Do you have a date in mind, officially or even unofficially, by which you think we will get a declaration? The head coach has already said he has one, or he has some ideas. I think one of your compadres columnized about this the other day, Chip Scoggins. I think he said maybe Aug 14, right before the joint practice sessions this year. What's your view on the when?
Well, yeah, I think it's earlier than later would be ideal, because you want to have the guy set so that he's working with Justin Jefferson, he's working with a center who's starting for the first time at the position this year, that you get all of those pieces set so that you're heading into the season and you can work with that offense to get enough familiarity with a few new places, a few people in a few new places that you're ready to go. So, yeah, I think what Chip threw out there, August 14th, I believe, would be the day before the preseason opener. So if they can do that, yeah, I think that would be very much where they want to be. I think that timeline is very possible, and from what I've heard, I think that would be, if they can get it done, they'd love to be set on the quarterback by that point. But I also don't think they're going to make a decision early if they don't feel like they've had enough chance to finalize it, because you want to know once you make that decision that this is going to be your guy, because you communicate a lot about the direction of the franchise anytime you make those decisions with the quarterback, even if it's not for anything longer than the 2026 season or the start of the 2026 season. You want that position to feel as settled as it can, and I don't think they're going to rush that announcement just to get a couple more days of that. You want to be certain in the decision. I think they'd love to have it done around then, especially as you head into those joint practices, which would mean you can get that quarterback a lot of time with the number one offense in what's probably the most important work in the preseason for the number one offense against the Ravens defense. So I think they'd love to be there. If they could get that done, it'll just be a question of, do they feel like they have enough information to make a firm decision by that point and go forward with it.
Now let's get to the most important stuff that I've been waiting to talk to you about for a couple of weeks, because I think we skipped last week. And this was the story that broke in from the world of track and field just a couple of weeks ago, that a record that had remained standing in your favorite sport for the better part of 27 years finally went down, right? And that was indeed the mile world record, which was broken by a guy named Josh Kerr, 27-year-old record. He ran it in 3 minutes, 42.66 seconds at a Diamond League event in London. So I look at this, and part of what fascinated me about it is it sounds like this is a guy who made this his quest. And I think the plan was dubbed something called Project 222. The idea was to slice 2.22 seconds off of his personal best and topple the record that I think was set in 99 by a guy out of Morocco. So apparently he lives in Albuquerque, and the story I read said that to give himself the best shot at reaching this goal, he and his wife converted their bedroom into an altitude chamber to add about 3,000 more feet of elevation, and he spent as much time as possible in that one room hoping to boost his ability to carry oxygen to his muscles. Now, that's serious.
Yes, it is. And this was a endeavor that consumed most of his year, and whether it was, I think, getting customized spikes designed with his sponsors at Brooks. He had a certain speed suit that he was wearing. I mean, all of this stuff he left no stone unturned so that he could step on that track and basically say, I've done everything I can do to prepare myself. Now I just go let it rip. And I watched it live. I was at a practice that morning with a few of our track kids, and we pulled it up on the phone and watched it. And it was pretty remarkable to see what he did, because he ran it with a level of confidence and a level of mastery that tells you the preparation. I mean, this is a guy that was in the Olympic final. He was the silver medalist in the 1500 2 years ago in the Olympics and has been a world champion in the 1500. So he's been one of the more decorated distance runners in the world for the last few years. But yeah, he said this at the beginning of the year, that I'm going to do this at this meet. So to call a shot like that with a record that had lasted since 1999 when Hisham El Garouj broke it, it was quite I think as the British announcer said on the call that I saw from there, he said it's one of the ballsiest world records that you could imagine, because it's lasted for that long. And he said, I'm going to break it on this day. And it's, we all know in this day and age, if you put yourself out there like that and you don't do something, you're going to have critics, sitting there mocking you and second guessing you on social media for as long as, probably the rest of your career. So for him to go out and do what he did, the level of preparation that it took and the level of just fortitude to go make it happen on that day in his home country with 60,000 people there to see that, it was quite a feat. And just listening to him talk about his process through that has been a lot of fun, just to hear how he goes about it. There's a lot I've learned from it, and it's a pretty exciting thing in the sport, because one of the big stars in the distance running world, and it was something that he set a pretty audacious goal and delivered it with flying colors. I'm
here to tell you, I think we've talked about this before, if that series of events that leads to that record happened in the 60s, it's everywhere as a story. It was such a different world. Track and field, I feel bad for you to that extent, because it's so important to you, because I think you know this. There was a time in terms of coverage, TV coverage, really just sort of in the, I guess you could say, the sports menu. Track and field was much more mainstream in the United States of America. And I don't know what's changed, and things happen for whatever reason, and maybe there's nothing to do about it. I don't toss and turn over it. But I do remember I remember watching so many races, mile races, sprints, relays, etc. on a Saturday afternoon on among many places, Wide World of Sports. And And so I think it's actually, as odd as it sounds, it's too bad this is such a specialized sport at this point, because it's a hell of a story. It's a hell of a saga.
Yeah, it is. And it has changed a lot, and I think there's a lot of reasons for that. One of them is that I've been working on a story about this, about the changes in the NCAA and what it's going to do to affect Olympic sports going forward, because the NCAA has provided a heck of a lot of Olympic athletes and a lot of medalists. But one of the things I've heard from coaches in that is that the sport has kind of cannibalized itself, because the meets take all day, as my wife knows very well from waiting for me to get home from them.
Right.
A lot of times college meets, they've stopped keeping score. So it's the question of, well, did you win? Did you beat Wisconsin or not?
Yeah.
If you're the Gophers, it's not as easy to answer. And that stuff, a lot of coaches have said, we have to change this, because it's an exciting sport. I mean, you watch some of those Olympic races, and we talk about short attention spans, and, it's people running for a half hour. Not really. I mean, Josh Kerr is on the track for 3.5 minutes, and 800s are decided in a minute 45 or less these days. I mean, Cooper Lukenhaus in Texas is a 17-year-old that just won the national championship, and he's probably going to be a star in the Olympics in a couple of years. Those races are very YouTube friendly because they're done in a couple of minutes, but it has to get to the point where it's packaged better for TV. People can understand the stakes behind it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the reason Kerr did this, and he's had quite a rivalry with Jakob Ingebrigtsen, and they both leaned into it because they're saying the sport needs rivalries, it needs personality, it needs storylines to get people back to it. It can be really exciting, but the sport needs to do a better job of marketing itself and introducing itself to the world. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and a lot of it might be its presentation, like you say, and as sick as that is, that might be the reality in 2026. One last question about it that caught my eye in one of the stories I read. Once the race started, Kerr relied on 2 pace-setting runners and a system called Wavelight. It uses a string of LED lights laid along the track to signal to an athlete the exact rhythm he needs to break a record. As the crowd roared, Kerr put his months of laser focus to the test. Now, tell me about that. That fascinates me. On the other hand, it worries me. Is it so? Because I worry that some people say, well, yeah, improvements here. This is all technology based. It's really not even fair to the runners in, let's say, the 60s, 70s, or the guy who broke the record 27 years ago.
Well, I mean, there is that. Whether it's the wave lights, and these are a thing. Yes, it's basically LED lights that you say you need to be ahead of this pace. I mean, you'll see that in broadcast sometimes, where a record is superimposed and you get the line moving of what they need to be. I mean, we see this in Olympic broadcasts all the time, but this is a live thing, and I've seen some of my athletes race in a few specialized things in the summer. We'll do this from time to time. You can get these things, and in fact, I think Mill City Running is doing an event later this summer where they've got wave light pacing. So you can get those things to set at certain paces, and yes, they do help. There's no doubt that the technological advancements, whether it's the tracks, the shoes, the singlets that people are wearing, the way that they can fuel, the way that they can hydrate, all of that stuff has helped. And that's certainly, I think, happened in a lot of different sports. To go out and do what he did, I think it still comes down to the guy in the shoes, in the suit, running along those wavelights, all of those things. It still comes down to that person showing up and putting himself in a place that he knows is going to hurt and he knows is going to push him to the edge. But yes, it is. The technology has been a big part of the change in this, and I think we see that in every sport. But yes, the wave lights are a relatively new thing. The pacemakers at the beginning of it are just to make sure that the pace gets out fast enough, and those guys kind of they finish the race because they have to for it to be an official world record, but they're not expected to win the thing. And I think they took him through about 900 meters. And I ran a mile PR myself a few weeks ago, and I kind of made my move about that point. And there's still 700 meters when you're going that fast. It's still a long way to go. So you have all of those things that you have to work through. But yes, there's no doubt the technology has changed a lot and has moved a lot of these things in the sport along. And a lot of people will say, like, hey, this is not Roger Bannister on a cinder track in 1954. It's a lot different than that. But, I think we should.
But that's true in every sport.
At this point, too.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah,
that's across the board, no, for sure. Last question for today. We'll see probably out of training camp on Monday. I can't remember. Are you part of the bucket hat brigade? Seifert has, I think, tried to start a bit of a trend, but I don't recall whether all of you have gone along with his bucket hat approach to being protected from the sun at covering training camp.
I have one. Because like a lot of track coaches spend a lot of time in the sun, so you get the bucket hats for that too, because you're just trying to keep yourself from getting roasted, primarily on the back of your neck. I have not committed to that particular bit in the way that Seifert has. Yes. I may have to pull mine out just to kind of go along with it. And it's probably also, my mom's probably listening to this, saying, you need to protect yourself in the sun. So I can see the reason for doing it. I don't know. It's not been as much my thing, and maybe it's because I still have a thick enough head of hair that I don't want to get too messed up. I'm probably a little bit vain about that, I suppose, too. But I may pull it out just for the commitment to the bit here. Maybe when you guys are out there, I'll bring it out just to play along with it.
We'll see you Monday. Thanks for the help, as always.
We'll be there a week from Friday in your regular day. So should we plan on the Goessling?
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
we'll be there a week from today, so bring it out that day, too.
There it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I will. If you guys are there, I will be there with my bucket hat on.
We're bookending it next week, I guess. Gaardsy's reminding me. Thanks a lot. Have a great weekend.
You too. Thanks, Dan.
Ben Goessling, Star Tribune and StarTribune.com. I'm going to eventually, you know what I'm going to end up doing? I've always been trying to figure out what my podcast should be. Everybody's got a podcast. I'm the last person in the world who so far doesn't. Maybe I should start a track and field podcast. Well, I don't know. That might be a little limiting, but I think there's some good stories, man. And I do remember a time where that sport was more mainstream because it's exciting. There's good stuff. If you can find it, it's just harder to find, unfortunately, in 2026.
Bumper to Bumper with Dan Barrero on The Fan.
From the 1-800-ASK-GARY traffic.
Time to look back on 25 years ago in training camp. If you go back to July 30 of 2001, Corey Stringer, Vikings offensive lineman, unable to complete the first practice session that day in the morning. At the time, it was viewed as exhaustion issues. He did not practice in the afternoon session. Made a big point of telling people, team officials, that he would practice the next morning, and that was in full pads, as I recall it. A lot of heat. And on July 31st, he did complete the morning session, July 31st, 25 years ago. And then, by the way, vomited, I believe, several times on that occasion. Practice, that morning session lasted well over 2 hours. He goes to an air-conditioned shelter afterwards. He becomes very weak, disoriented, and dizzy. According to the Wikipedia notes from that day, by 11:30 in the morning, when practice was concluded, the heat index had reached 99 degrees Fahrenheit, and that, in fact, it later peaked at 110 degrees Fahrenheit, the heat index, I should say, with a high temperature of 90 degrees. And as I recall it, it was extremely muggy as well, right? A lot of very high dew point. He's taken to the hospital. Body temperature when he is admitted is a 108 degrees Fahrenheit, unconscious from the time he was admitted, ultimately pronounced dead at 1:50 a.m. on August 1st, organ failure resulting from heat stroke. An unspeakable tragedy that will never be forgotten for all the obvious reasons. And my recollection of it, the day of the collapse, was I was not in Mankato because it was one of those days where, NFL Films, I don't know if they still do this, but they would come in and they'd have 4 or 5 ink stain wretches or broadcasters like me lined up and ask us questions about, maybe they have maybe they have a half-hour session coming on Walter Payton. What are your remembrances of covering Walter Payton? There are a couple of Vikings involved, and you would just do these quick interviews. In fact, I want to say it was at a Marriott Hotel in Minnetonka, right off 394, at least at the time. And it was, I think, during that or coming out of that I first found out what had happened in this particular case. And like everybody then, we were all pretty much on call in Mankato. I can still remember how difficult it was to try to cover for all the obvious reasons. You did not want to intrude on what the players were going through and the coaches, and yet you felt like you had a job to do. It was a huge story, so you had to try to cover it. And I remember running into Chris Carter somewhere in an area where we were still allowed to go, and I was kind of like talking around it with him, and feeling him out in terms of how far he'd want to go in discussing it. And eventually, as I recall it, I did end up talking to him at least some, and you're just sort of trying to paint a picture. An absolutely horrific story at the time, and I don't even know. Look, it's a long time ago now. It's a completely different set of individuals in charge, etc. But to a certain extent, I don't know that a franchise ever gets past that kind of story, right? It always is going to be searing in the minds of everybody old enough to remember it, and even those perhaps pretty young, because of what it represented. It did lead. Now, as I recall it, the training staff ultimately was not held liable across the board by, I think, health officials in the state of Minnesota who did an investigation. There was the debate about the obvious, which is if he's a guy who's very large, right, over 300 pounds, what's fair to demand of him? If he's not in the proper shape, does a team have a right to hold him accountable? And how do you go about doing that without necessarily also endangering his life to a certain extent, correct? So it opened up a lot of questions at the time. And it also, I do think, led to a series of, even by then, I think we thought that the rules that governing coaches' behavior was less draconian by then than it used to be back in the day where players were deprived of water, right?
That was the thing.
And we were, I think, past that. But there were still, after that tragedy, there were a number of changes brought to the entire league, right? From a policy standpoint regarding heat stroke prevention, what could be expected of players, what was not fair of players. And again, a lot of the discussion too is you want these and by the way, players are even bigger now, aren't they, in some cases? What's fair to expect there? At the time of his death, Stringer was a big man. I think he was about 6'3", 6'4", and he weighed 335 pounds, which was actually the lowest weight he had been at in his career. But a number of changes were made, I think, to try to be even more careful, more conservative, too. So I don't know. For the record, the Vikings retired his jersey number 77 on November 19, 2001. That was during halftime of a Monday night game with the Giants during the 2001 season. Over the years, we've definitely talked to Robert Smith about it. I'd had hopes to get him today, but it turned out it was a very busy day for him on his some of his Fox football duties. I think he's in that mode right now where he's preparing. But we've talked to him about that before. We've talked to Chris Carter about it before over the years. I don't know if we've ever talked to Mike Tice about it. I'm not even sure. But it a tragic story that still, I think, haunts the entire organization.
Like, you remember exactly the building you were in. I remember exactly the house I was in. And watching the press conference the next day with Denny and Carter and Randy, one of the just most gut-wrenching press conferences you could ever be a part of. The team is doing a Corey Stringer tribute tomorrow. This is the first weekend where things are open to fans. Things are open to fans starting tomorrow. The team tomorrow about 1:15 is doing a Corey Stringer tribute. The Stringer family will have some remarks. Corey Stringer Institute people will have some remarks as well at TCO Stadium. So that's part of the deal tomorrow at training camp. He will not. I don't think that story will ever be forgotten, and he will never be forgotten either. Let's come back, wrap up a very busy program today, and remind you what's coming up.
You're listening to Barrera.
It's the Bumper to Bumper Show Wrap.
Dan, I'm 45. I can remember watching growing up watching the Summer Olympics, and each version, U.S. track had its own version of the superstars, starting with Carl Lewis, Michael Johnson in 96. I even remember Reebok hyping up Dan and Dave in 92. Track and field was must-see Olympic TV when I was growing up. Jonathan from Bloomington is a local cross-country and track and field coach. I always love your track talk with Ben. I think he would do great as a track podcaster. What would make you effective is your storytelling questions. I could even see you broadening it out as a Wide World of Sports podcast. Who knows? Who's to say? Although I think I'd be stealing the name. That might be a problem. And Brett reminds us, I love that you have a fondness for yesteryear. You were talking about track a short while ago, and I thought about the great Cuban runner Alberto Juantorena. I haven't thought about him in years, but for some reason he popped into my head as you went to your last break. That's a great callback to yesteryear for sure. No,
you were in the building
for
Michael Johnson, right, in Atlanta?
I was, yes.
That was pure electricity. That's kind of the first big Olympics I remember watching. Besides like the Kerrigan stuff. 96 Atlanta. I'm a teenager. You got the gymnastics. Andre Agassi wins the gold in tennis. But Michael Johnson in the gold shoes.
Michael Johnson,
the 200 and the 400.
I think of that. I think of Carl Lewis at the L.A. Olympics I covered. And then I think of the Carl Lewis, Ben Johnson 100-meter race in Seoul. And I'm just going to tell you, for sheer in the building or in the arena or in the stadium atmosphere and anticipation, those are as thrilling as moments as I've ever covered.
I believe it.
I mean, it's just the feeling. And you're, again, talking about